So, welcome back to Mr. Tilley's Math Magics. As you can see, learning goal 1 at the moment, we are going on with techniques for collecting data. And in this lesson, we are going to be looking at 2 very specific types of data. That being, firstly, discrete data and continuous data. So let's move this a little bit over here and we'll start to actually have a look at a definition of each. So discrete data is data that is counted in very specific intervals. They're usually whole numbers, but be very careful because they don't always have to be whole numbers. So if we were to have a go at some discrete data right now, we might do up a bit of a survey where you are just going to count all the items that you have on your desk. Now let's say we've got student Tom, we've got Claire, and we've got Alex. All these 3 students are in our class on desk. Now, if you were to count the items on your desk, how many items do you have? Let's say Tom has 6 items on his desk, including pens, pencils, everything that they've got. Claire's got 7, and let's say Alex has 12. Well, these are defined intervals, and this is discrete data. Now, the key point here is that if Claire were to take one of her pencils and give it to Tom, well, then Tom would now have 7 items on the desk. You can see there's been that very definitive jump there. And Claire, 1 down, now has 6 items on the desk. So you notice there that Tom doesn't have 6.5 items on his desk. Tom's got 7. And that's the big takeaway with discrete data. It has those defined intervals. It's got the stop and the start. Now you can have decimals with your discrete data. It just depends on the situation that you find yourself in. Now coming over to continuous data, I like to use the example of something that we've all had to go through, that being growing. Now, one morning you may have woken up and you were 140 centimeters tall. Well, anyone who has grown will know that you don't grow from 140 centimeters and then just blink, all of a sudden you're 141 centimeters. It doesn't work that way. You have had to go through every kind of measurement in between 140 and 141 centimeters, which means you've gone to 140.0001 centimeters. You've then gone to 140.0002 centimeters, and so on. So as you can see, continuous data is measured between those intervals, and it can take any value at all between those intervals. Now, one important thing to remember about continuous data is that it is only defined by how accurate the measuring device you are using is. So you will notice that if you were to time someone running, so in a 100-meter race, if you're looking at the clock on the wall and counting, well, you're going to be counting in whole seconds. But we know that professional athletes don't actually time their races that way. They actually use a proper stopwatch, which goes into hundredths of a second. Again, on top of that, you can get extremely high-speed cameras that may go into thousandths and millionths of a second. So, as you can see there, time is another continuous form of data that is really only limited by how accurate our measuring device is. So just to quickly go back over it, remember, discrete data, it has those defined intervals. You are going from one number to a completely different one. You've got that defined boundary. Continuous data can be any value between 2 boundaries. It is only defined by how accurate the device is that you are using to measure. From here, if you have any questions, please write them down, bring them into class. I'm sure the teacher in front of you has a great activity planned for you. As always, have a good lesson.